Hello there, beautiful human. Melinda Joy, Crossroads Storyteller here with a hashtag video. For all of you who don't already know, every month I share a tarot reading, collective one, and 7 tapping videos to help us all further step into our most true selves. So if you are into tarot and tapping, you're going to 100% want to subscribe. And this video response is to Mags Black. And I will for sure include a link to their video so that you can locate all of the questions and tap into the intentions behind this tag. So yes, I'm really excited to share this part of me. I strongly, my entire life, before I even knew about tarot, have identified with nerd and geek definitions. But yeah, for any of you who are not sure what the nuances are, Mags gave us some definitions to work with, which I so appreciate. I just like being on the same page. So, a geek is a person with an intense interest in one or more subjects. A geek will have encyclopedic knowledge about these topics and may be an avid collector of tech or memorabilia related to the areas of concern. And then a nerd is an intellectual who is focused on learning all there is to know about one or more topics and mastering the skills of the discipline. Some would say a nerd is a geek who either lacks social skills or else simply prefers solitary pursuits. So yeah, I think I am a lot of that. Especially the intense interest and encyclopedic knowledge, avid collector, and I definitely, identify with my intellectual side, and I really like to master the skills related to the discipline. Oh, the social skills or prefer solitary pursuits, I think is really interesting because I historically have felt really uncomfortable in social situations. I'm for sure becoming more comfortable. Like, the more comfortable I become in my own body, the more comfortable I am in other people's presence. Probably because I'm less concerned about them and more interested in my experience of the present. But I do think it's interesting. I did hear a theory from someone who wrote about what they called highly sensitive people, and how sometimes being in a live social in-person interaction can be overstimulating, and how engaging with others and finding connection through the internet oftentimes is a much more comfortable way because the highly sensitive person can sort of take a break and or reassess at any point in the experience. And so I think it's also really interesting that this conversation is happening via the internet, because I think that may be sort of not for everybody, but I wonder if the humans who identify with the lack of social skills, if they also enjoy social media or internet interaction more than they do in life interaction. So who knows? If you would like to participate in that conversation, leave a comment and let me know where you are on the highly sensitive person spectrum and how you like to engage with others. Okay, so let's get into these questions. Now that we've clarified all of the ways I am a geek and a nerd. So the first question is, which tarot deck for you offers endless interest or study opportunities, and why? So at this point in time, the Barbara Walker Tarot is a really good example of a deck I'm getting a lot out of. and think I could continue to study many times over. And part of the reason why I find it so interesting is because Barbara Walker not only cares about the like occult history of the tarot, but also is really interested in how the meanings of the tarot connect to mythology and folklore, and especially Barbara Walker is really interested in the mythological structure where the goddess is going through the maiden, mother, crone cycle, but that the moon, but that the god is also going through a cycle that entails a death experience, as does the sun, and each day. And so yeah, Barbara Walker shares a lot about how that sort of central mythology of the relationship between the god and the goddess in their different forms, and when the goddess is a bringer of life and when the goddess is a bringer of death, and when the king is in power and when the king is dethroned, how that is all entwined in all of these other mythologies and ancient stories that we've continued to hang on to. And yeah, I'll explain more how that is connected to my specific interests when I get to a future question. But yeah, at this point in time, the Barbara Walker Tarot is like really itching that must know more spot. Question number 2. Which tarot deck hit or miss your cardstock spot and why? Okay, I have very little interest in cardstock when it comes to the things I'm assessing when purchasing a deck. That's just not what I'm concerned with. So I'm not even sure how to just like what the official names are for these cardstocks that I'm going to share. But yeah, I'm going to start sharing. So the Lillifer Tarot, I'm not going to share it with you, the cards themselves, because this is one of those decks that's so special and intimate to me that I don't share it with anybody. One of my tarot quirks. Maybe I'll do that hashtag later. So yeah, I don't share this deck with anybody, but the cardstock is amazing. I love the way it feels on my fingers. It's like so soft, and smooth and silky and satiny, and it just makes me so happy. It isn't the kind of deck that I think riffle shuffles very well, but I don't care. There's so many ways to shuffle. I just shuffle a different way. And then a cardstock that I just absolutely love for the way it works in my hands. This is the Desert Illuminations by Lindsay D. Williams. And if you're listening to this video in real time, know that Lindsay is currently revamping this deck to be additionally more fantastical and beautiful and detailed. And so if you're into this deck, you might want to check out that pre-order. So this cardstock makes me so happy because look at the way this fans out. I mean, it works out even better when my surface is flat, but that's just so smooth. It's just like so much fun to just fan the cards out, let alone all of the gorgeous imagery that is bright and beautiful and exciting and like pulls content out of me. I don't know how to explain it except that like I'm inspired by it. And okay, yes, but the cardstock makes the experience of this deck all the more enjoyable. A cardstock that doesn't hit my spot is this Dark Goddess Tarot. I think it is like a little bit too plasticky, and I'm not sure if it's because of like what happened to this deck before it came into my possession, or if it's because the cardstock is so sort of sticky, or if it's because of the way the gilding was applied. But this deck was so hard to separate from itself. Like, I had to take a knife to it for part of it because the cards were stuck to each other, and they don't stick to each other quite so much now. And it has not limited my use of this deck. I still absolutely love using it and do use it all the time in really supportive ways that feed me. But I would love to one day obtain the independent version that doesn't have this title covering part of the image. And I guess I didn't really show you any of the cards that got damaged, but there's some cards in here that are quite, here, like, that's not ideal. And some of them have like weird marks from being stuck to each other. Like, it sort of looks like something sticky, like a sticker was put on it and then the sticker came off, but not all of the residual left. It's really strange, but yeah, not my most ideal. Do I love the deck anyways? Yes. Anything Ellen Lorenzi Prince makes, I am here for it. Does size matter? Favorite shapes and sizes of decks. Smallest deck, largest deck. Okay, so I agree with Meg with Rose Honey Ritual that there needs to be more square decks in the world. Square decks are so flipping awesome in that there's so many different positions for the card to arrive as, and it just puts so much more nuance in a tarot spread. Like, the cards have an opportunity to look at each other in different ways than they can when you're only reading upright or reversed, and they're brilliant. I think everyone should make square decks. And then, so, by the way, Meg's Rose Honey Ritual response to this video is awesome. I love her Tarot Town idea. I would move to that Tarot Town. That would make me really happy. So, this is my largest deck, and this is my smallest deck. And there's my hand for comparison. Next question. Is there a favorite tarot artist, author, creator, publisher that you enjoy the most or collect, and why? Okay, so first I want to mention not deck related content, but still tarot content. Anything and everything Naha puts out regarding tarot, I have enjoyed immensely. And you can find all of it either via recording or in the future via live class on 22teachings.com. And my favorite deck creators. Okay, I already mentioned Ellen Lorenzi Prince. Anything and everything she's made, I have at least one edition of it. And then I absolutely love everything Jessica Zinchuk creates. And I'm so stoked for their projected last deck to add that to my collection. And then I absolutely love everything Casey Zabala makes. She has 2 decks, this one and an Oracle deck. I absolutely love everything Angela Mary Magic has created with the Moon Baby Magic Tarot and the Altaloon Oracle. I'm interested in everything Lean makes. I don't have her very first major cards, but I do have the Rosetta, which I am thrilled about, and then some mentions that I absolutely love and want all of the decks for, but don't yet. I would love to have Ren's. What's Ren's last name? Dark Days Tarot. Oh, yes, McMurdo Brignac, something like that. I would like Ren's other deck, and I would really enjoy adding The Vision of the Muse by Alejandra Leon, or the Lioness Oracle. I would really like to add that oracle to my collection. And then last but definitely not least, I absolutely love Emily Carding's Transparent Tarot, so much so that I would like to get her other tarot deck and her oracle deck. So yeah, those are what basically happens is I fall in love with deck creators, and then that's what inspires a lot of my deck purchases. I really enjoy finding people who obviously care about this material and care about how content is shared and expressed. And I just really enjoy all of that intentionality. And so I like to support them and support myself with their beautiful pieces of artwork and magical tools. Okay, next question. Where is it? Number 5. Any favorite art styles or themes? Okay, like I said, I'm mostly into artists and then themes. I don't have a huge art style like specific interest. There is some, like, I know I've seen a watercolor deck out there that I think is a little bit creepy and weird. Yeah, so like I'm not always into like the darker images or the creepier images, but otherwise I don't really care how the aesthetics are. But the favorite themes. Okay, so I pulled out decks to represent, there's 3 themes I want to mention, and I brought out different decks that I think touch on different pieces of the theme. Okay, so the first theme sort of has to do with the Barbara Walker tarot and why that's in my life. I'm very, very interested in the ways of thinking and being and interacting that were normal before colonialism was normal. And so some of the ways I try to access those ways of knowing are through sacred stories. And so here's some representations of those sacred stories that I have historically used to engage with this way of knowing and being, while and how I've integrated them into my tarot practice. Okay, so we have the Red Seed Tarot, which is connected to the Eleusinian Mysteries, and I absolutely love that someone made a deck connected to the Eleusinian Mysteries, because all of the cards that are, like, I go through the deck and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a part of the Eleusinian Mysteries, and this is a part of the Eleusinian Mysteries, and here's Dionysus, and so I'm really excited that someone made a more explicit deck about it. And I absolutely love the book The Key to Immortality, the Immortality Key, that's how it is, the Immortality Key. That book explains how the Eleusinian Mysteries are a much more modern presentation of a much more ancient way of engaging with spirit, and specifically death and ancestors and things like that. So of course I had to have this deck in my life. And then the Inner Child cards here by Isha. I feel like Isha also has a partner who participated, and Christopher. They created what they called the Inner Child tarot deck, but what's cool about this deck is it's fairy tale focused. Sorry, I didn't show you very many of these cards. I really appreciate how not all of the bodies are skin color, and how a lot of the bodies have different kinds of facial features. I just appreciate the nod to diversity. And the Eleusinian Mysteries part 2. Okay. Sorry, I sort of shortchanged you on that. But, so the inner child cards are fairy tales, which, oh my gosh, what happened? Oh man, I'm gonna have to do something to tend to that. I can't believe that happened, or how that happened. Okay, well, sorry to cause distress while recording, but might need to obtain a new deck. Okay, sorry, I'll address that on my own time. So what's cool about this deck is that they're fairy tales, and the person who created the deck is doing it from a psychological perspective. So it's not just a fairy tale slapped on the card like some fairy tale decks are. There's also all of the psychological reflection on how it has to do, like how this part of the fairy tale has to do with the card, and the meaning found in the fairy tale is connected to the meaning of the card and one's personal psychological experience. And so I really appreciate that thoroughness. And as Hettian Gobler mentions, the creator of the Mysteries of the Madonna decks, because she's definitely in this vibe for me also. She mentions how important fairy tales are to accessing the like pre-patriarchal, pre-colonial ways of thinking, and I really appreciated that affirmation. And the other sacred stories I'm really interested in are biblical stories. I studied the Old Testament in grad school and spent, I studied the entire Bible in undergrad, but really focused on biblical Hebrew Bible stories of female characters. And that was really important to my becoming process. And so I'm also really into any content connected to midrashic stories or historical religions that were developing around the same times as the Hebrew Bible, like Phoenician and Canaanite and Hittite and Sumerian and Babylonian and Mesopotamian, all of those traditions and their religious signification and how it is reflected in biblical content. I'm here for all of that. So this deck itches that spot. And then my next theme of interest is historical decks, but specifically the decks that are connected to Hermetic Kabbalah for sure. So here's my Visconti deck, which is for sure one of my most favorite historical decks in my possession. And yeah, I intend to do something pretty artistic with this deck at some point, but I'm not close enough to that to share it just yet. And then I also really enjoy anything the Ciceros create. And also really enjoy that a lot of these humans are like primary colors instead of skin tones. And then, so this is like a historical Golden Dawn connected deck, right? So like that's connected to my magical practice heritage. Oh. And then the Pamela and Joyce Aiken's Tarot of the Spirit is a really good example of a much more modern deck that is hardcore Kabbalah influenced and themed. And I absolutely love all of the written content connected to this deck, I'm so stoked to explore that really thoroughly at some point in the future. So yeah, also all of Maline's decks would fit into that category of interest. And last but not least, anything that is connected to rewilding or helping people and myself step out of the modern colonial capitalist supremacist stories that harm every single one of us, to very different degrees and in very different ways, but still very harmful to all of us. So the Numinous Tarot for me is a good example of a deck that is attempting to share more intentional narrative of what the tarot cards are, especially in connection to accepting oneself and, like I said, stepping out of the colonial Western society ways of thinking and being. And then the Sluttish Tarot is a really good example of a deck that is created by someone who is intentionally reclaiming sexuality despite all of the pushes against owning one's body and the agency over that body. And then the Herb Crafter's Tarot is another example of the kinds of decks I collect that are, weaving a different story about our connection to the earth and how we can relate in ways that benefit the whole. So, any decks that are like Next World Tarot totally fits in this category, and the Creative Liberation Now deck definitely fits in this category. Dirt Gems definitely fits in this category. Raging Fembots deck and Exotic Cancers deck totally fits in this category. So these are sort of my niches within this rewilding theme that I'm really interested in when it comes to tarot. Okay. Last question. In what ways are you a tarot nerd or geek with tarot cards? Okay, so I already explained how I'm all of those things. But then there's also the mention of bumper stickers, branded clothing, jewelry, tattoos, deck collections, and artwork. Okay, so yes, thoroughly expressed how much I'm into deck collecting. Here's my most favorite my most favorite t-shirt, tarot memorabilia. I'm not sure what else you would call it. And this is a card that's going to be in the Word Witches Marseille deck that's coming out in the near future, and I'm so excited about it. So excited about it. I feel like it meets this category and this category, reclaiming bodily autonomy and writing a new narrative around what we're doing societally and politically. So yeah, that's my primary. I would really enjoy other things though. Oh, I also have a sweater that has some tarot cards that aren't really like connected to a specific deck, but I think it would be fun to own some of the Lioness Oracle's printed artwork. And yeah, whenever I go to buy a deck, I always seriously think about buying their artwork and like stickers and things like that, but I have not yet become that person. I'm like saving my money for tarot cards, but I would love to be this person too. Okay, that's everything. If any of this resonated with you, if you have any of my similar interests, I would absolutely I would absolutely love to know that you exist, and I would love to engage with you further. So please make yourself known through a comment. And if you're into this video, you'll probably be into some of my other VRs. I've got some content around decks for the Sephiroth and circular decks and a couple other really cool things. So yeah, check that out. But first, before you do that, like and subscribe. Okay. And if you're interested in sending me gratitude, booking a reading, or finding me on Instagram, there's a single link for all of that. So much love.